Around 3 years ago, I got to review the original DK-3001, and at that point, it was the most premium IEM I've had a look at, as well as being the first IEM from DUNU that I got to review. The sound signature was something I immediately liked, but it had one very specific flaw which completely crippled it for me, and that was the fit. So, can the new Pro version continue that legacy of good sound, but this time around offer a better, more comfortable fit? Well, let's check it out. If you want a closer look into the design, then just follow the link in the description, which will take you to the full written review, as I'll just briefly cover the most important aspects in this video. Compared to the original DK-3001, yes, the new Pro version offers improvements in practically every sense. The actual build quality seems similar, which both looks and feels very premium, but it's the design which has undergone some major improvements. DUNU has addressed the issue of the fit by redesigning the housing to have less sharp angles, and thus it sits in the ear with perfect comfort, even during longer listening sessions. Likewise, the cable is also an enormous step up from what we got on the previous version, as well as pretty much any cable you get with any other earphone out there, to be quite honest. The design looks and feels premium, but it's the modular plug design which makes it really interesting, as it allows you to swap out the connection for any of the most popular headphone outputs. What's more, all of these adapters are also included in the box. Internally, the 3001 Pro sees another upgrade in the form of an extra driver, which makes this a 5-driver hybrid configuration. But it's not just a matter of slapping an extra driver into each earpiece, as the tuning has also undergone some major alteration. Now, the 3001 Pro does ship with 4 different types of ear tips, so we'll take a look at how these affect the sound signature. The first set of tips are the grey coloured ones. Generally, the sound signature tends to favour the bass region ever so slightly, which makes it lean on the warmer side. However, these peaks in the high mids and the treble region are elevated enough to give an overall presentation which feels more U-shaped. So instead of it coming across as being somewhat bloated due to the bass hump, those other peaks balance things out really nicely, and they do so without ever crossing straight over into sibilance. The second pair of tips included are the grey ones with a red stem. These only seem to have a very minor effect on the upper treble region, and I really can't say for sure that I could definitely hear this difference when swapping between the tips. The third kind of tips we have are some Comply memory foam tips. Usually we'd expect these foam tips to increase the bass a bit whilst taming the highs, but in this case they seem to have no effect on the bass and instead shift that upper treble peak a bit earlier whilst also increasing its level. The last tips included are some custom spin fit tips. When I say custom, this is not to say that they are made for me personally, but rather that DUNU has these made specifically for them. As for how these tips affect the sound, it's essentially identical to all of the other tips apart from the foam tips. And just for the sake of a comparison, here's a graph with the regular spin fit tips. These make the 3001 Pro have a little more of a V-shaped signature, as they increase the bass a little whilst also affecting the upper treble region in the same manner as what the foam tips do. Another set of aftermarket tips I have are the JVC spiral dots. These tend to warm the signature up a bit due to how it subdues that treble. I don't find the treble of the 3001 Pro intrusive enough to really warrant a need for these tips, but having said that, I do feel that they can make the treble and indeed the overall signature sound just a little more natural. But again, the tuning of the treble is so tastefully done that this basically just comes down to personal preference rather than any real matter of objectivity. Sticking with the spiral dot tips, let's compare the responses of the 3001 Pro to the original 3001. Listening to these two variants back to back, the original definitely sounds more V-shaped, with both the bass and treble being very obviously elevated. In contrast, the Pro is just in a different league with reference to how comparatively natural it sounds, despite having just a bit of added flavour to both the bass and treble to make things sound a little more exciting. The refinement that has gone into this new version is pretty remarkable. Compared to my ER2 SE and XR, the 3001 Pro impressed me a lot. The SE is definitely more neutral, but what I found is that the signature of the 3001 Pro sits somewhat between that of the SE and the XR. The bass isn't as prominent as on the XR, but it is more than on the SE. This does a great job of hitting those bass notes when it's required, but avoids adding unnecessary bass bloat to the music when there shouldn't be any. Likewise, the clarity it offers in the mids and highs is closer to what you'd get on the SE. The slightly elevated bass and more sparkly treble is just so perfectly done as to add a little bit of magic, but at the same time to never sound what I'd describe as being forced or artificial. Electric guitars in particular sounded great because the 3001 Pro does an amazing job of really bringing out that crunch and bite. I really am very impressed with what DUNU has accomplished here. From the engineering side, it's just such a refined product, but from a more artistic side in terms of the tuning, they just got it so right. So the DK-3001 Pro looks great, feels great, and most importantly, it sounds great. But there is the matter of the price tag. Now, at a retail price of $469, these aren't exactly what you'd call cheap. They might not be approaching those crazy 4-digit figures, but $469 is still a pretty hefty amount to be spending on a set of IEMs by any reasonable measure. On the one hand, we should perhaps consider where the 3001 Pro has come from. The fact of the matter is that compared to the original, the new version truly is deserving of that extra Pro in the title, as it improves upon the original in every meaningful way. And yet, despite all of those improvements, the Pro is being sold with the same price tag as the original DK-3001. That's pretty damn good, but realistically, it is still $469 to be spending. But to be quite frank with you, for the moment at least, I think they are worth every penny. When you're spending this kind of money on IEMs, you deserve a premium product, and that is exactly what you're getting here. It really is the full package. As much as I absolutely adore the sound of both the ER2 SE and the XR variant, the 3001 Pro in a sense takes all of the individual things I like about them separately and then combines them into a single, more premium IEM package. No, it's no replacement for the neutrality you get from the Etymotics. They certainly still have their place for me. But for sheer musical enjoyment, this tuning is fantastic. So if you're wanting to maybe spoil yourself a little bit and you're looking for a sound signature which has just a bit of a tasteful flavor added to the bass and treble and maybe tilted on the warmer side of neutral, then you really cannot go wrong with a DK-3001 Pro. Well, that's it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are well and that you are safe. That's all from me for now, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.